Arbit Shemesh, the Holy Land. We are on SUCCAH Daf Pesam base. With the end of the lineage, the book was Rav Yehuda. Alexander ben David, but it's supposed to be Ram. So it says the Mishnah. We're going to do a little recap. We started the Mishnah. We'll see it again. SUCCAH, if you built your SUCCAH under a tree, it's as if you built it in your house. Meaning it's puzzle. It's no good. You got to build the SUCCAH outdoors. Okay? SUCCAH, let's say you build one SUCCAH on top of another SUCCAH. It's not inside the house, but it's under a SUCCAH. Similar concept. Psula. It's puzzle. Sorry. The top one is kasha, because there's nothing on top of that one. But the one underneath is puzzle. It's not good. Sounds very simple. We're going to see not as simple as it sounds. If no one's living in the SUCCAH upstairs, the second floor, then the ground floor is kasha. Says the gemorah. Amar Rava. Says Rava. Don't take this Mishnah for granted. When does the din apply? When is it true that the bottom SUCCAH is parcel? When is the ground floor SUCCAH parcel? Now, as a kid, I remember learning this and thinking, well, how on earth do you have a SUCCAH on top of a SUCCAH, right? You can't walk on leaves. What's happening? So obviously now that I'm a little bit older, we're a little bit more knowledgeable, not that much more. You can build a SUCCAH. The SUCCAH could be thick beams, right? They're not allowed to be nailed down the beams. That's possible. But you could have your SUCCAH could be thick planks of wood that people can walk on. There's nothing wrong with that. So that's 100% kosher SUCCAH. There is an Indian, no one's makbid on it for some reason, that you should be able to see the stars through the SUCCAH. But whatever, we're going to see. It's not ma'akav, it's not, and no one's makbid on it even. I don't know why. It's before Shemeshna. Beis Hillel says you see the stars. But if I remember correctly, but you can have thick planks for your SUCCAH. It doesn't have to be leaves, and therefore you can the upstairs floor. You can have a nice, good, strong second floor over here in your SUCCAH. There's no reason why not, right? This is not all. So this is not theoretical. This is halacha l'maaseh. You built your SUCCAH. Your SUCCAH is thick planks. That's your SUCCAH. And upstairs, a guy says, I'm going to put a SUCCAH on top of you, right? So Mishnah says the downstairs SUCCAH is parcel. Says Rava, he quantifies it. When is the downstairs SUCCAH parcel? Not good. That's only if the tree has got a lot of shade. It's the thick leaves, the sun's not coming through at all, or at least 50% to be more accurate. Then the SUCCAH underneath is parcel. Aval, but if the tree is thin, there's shedding, there's barely any leaves there. There's twigs, there's some leaves, but you've got most of it is sun coming through. Kshera, in that case, the SUCCAH underneath is kosher. There's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. Okay. Mimai, says gemorah. Mimai. How do you know this? How does Rava get this din? The Mishnah is quite clear. The SUCCAH underneath is parcel. He comes and says, that's only if the tree is thick. If it's a thin tree, it's kosher. Well, how do you get that? The Mishnah doesn't say anything like that. The Mishnah says, SUCCAH below a SUCCAH is parcel. So how come Rava comes ahead and is so makel? So says the gemorah, it says as if you built it in your house, right? Just say, why are you saying, as if you built it in your house? Just say, if you built the SUCCAH under a SUCCAH, it's possible. Why are you giving the whole thing as if you built it in a house? To teach me a lesson. What's the lesson? The tree has to be similar to the house for it to be possible. My bias, it's only going to be possible if the tree is like a house and the tree is gives you shade. But if it doesn't give you the shade, then there's nothing wrong with that. Hello, sorry. So it says gemorah. This is where we want to do. Now ask the gemorah. Who cares if it's you got this thick tree, right? And we said it's possible. You can't sit under this thick tree. Who cares? Why not? Why is it going to be possible? Says gemorah, what's kasha? When you've got Reb Chaim, in other words, the kasha is like this. Just because in the case where you've got a lot of sun coming through, why is that considered to be kasha? Why? What's the problem? Says the gemorah, you still need to use the SUCCAH of the tree with the SUCCAH of the sukkah, and the SUCCAH of the tree is possible. So therefore, why is the sukkah kasha? Again, Rava said if the tree is thin, the tree's got Reb Chaim, means there's a very few leaves there. In that case, it's kasha. Your sukkah is good. You're allowed to build a sukkah under a tree. Says the gemorah, I don't understand. If the tree is possible, leaves of the tree are possible. Rashi says, why is the tree possible? Why is the tree no good? Because the leaves are muchubal karka. They're attached to the ground through the trunk of the tree. They're attached to the ground, and therefore the Torah says you should take the spare wood that you gathered. It's got to be chopped off. The wood can't be attached to a tree. So the leaves of a tree is possible, right? And now the gemorah is assuming, we're going to see, according to Rashi, it's a massive machlokes Rishonim going on over there. According to Rashi, the basic way to understand the gemorah is that you need the leaves of the tree and the leaves on the SUCCAH and your SUCCAH, the leaves on your sukkah, the kosher SUCCAH. You need them both together to get the Reb Tzal. We saw in the first Mishnah that sukkah needs Reb Tzal to be kosher. You need 51% shade in order for the sukkah to be kosher, and therefore we're assuming that you need the leaves together with the SUCCAH to get the 51%. So ask the gemorah. Once you're using those leaves which are possible, you need to use the possible SUCCAH, right? You're using that possible SUCCAH. How does it help me? Thank you very much for your compliment. How does it help me? What's that going to help you? If this is possible and this is kasha, you still need the SUCCAH possible. How can you use the SUCCAH possible? That's the gemorah's kasha. Rav Papa says, Rav Papa, I'll tell you what we're talking about here. We're talking about guys b'shechavtan. You smush the leaves down, you push the leaves down, and now the good SUCCAH, the good leaves, are blended, they're mixed together with the bad leaves. Okay. And therefore, b'shechavtan. The Gemara says, okay, so what if it's b'shechavtan? In other words, let's explain, what does that mean? So who cares if the leaves are together? So Rashi explains, there's a principle in the Torah. Torah being a holy Bible, 4,000 years old, the oldest religion that there is. So says the Torah says there's a principle called bottle b'rayv. Anytime you have more good than one bad, or more bad than one good, you could do something called bittul. We look at it like the whole thing. In other words, classic example, you have 2 pieces of meat, or 3 pieces of meat, more accurately. 2 are kosher, 1's not kosher. So biblically, midoraisa, you'll say there's a bit of bottle, the good one, and you don't know which one's which. Can you eat it? You've got to throw away all 3. Biblically speaking, we'll say bittul b'rayv. You've got 3 pieces of meat here, one of them is no good. We look at it, it all becomes good. You can eat all of them. It's bottle, it's cancelled out. That's the rice we say bittul. And therefore, when you've got your leaves mixed together, the good leaves mixed together with the bad leaves, b'chavtan, that's what it means according to Rashi, there's a principle of bittul. And therefore, it's all kosher now. Again, if the leaves are up here, the bad leaves and the good leaves are down here, you can't do a bittul. You can't say it's cancelled out. But when you push them together, it all looks together, then we say it's cancelled. You're not going to go ahead and say, stop picking out which leaves are good, which leaves are bad. Torah says, they're mixed together, it's cancelled. According to other opinions, other Rishonim in the Gemara, chafta means you chopped off the leaves. Either way, the Gemara says, you mushed it together. My lemema, what's a chiddush? What's it come to teach me? Of course, if it's mixed together, there's bittul and it's kosher. So the Mishnah would tell me something that's so obvious. That's pashut. Why says no? It's not pashut. Tell you why. I might think negzo. We should make a decree. We should make a decree telling me that when it's smushed together, it's possible. It's no good because you might go ahead and approve when they're not smushed together. Oh, I remember we put a tree on a sukkah under a tree. They mushed it together, and then 5 years later, before you turn around, you're using it even when the tree's not tied down to the SUCCAH. So you might think you make such a decree. We see these gzeres all the time, midrabanan. But the Gemara says no. The Havamid is you'd make such a decree. Kamash Milan, the Loi goes reading on. We don't make such a gezerah. Okay, so the Gemara says Honami Tanina. Hidla les a gevim es adlas a kismin. You put on your roof leaves, vines, whatever it is. V'sichach gaba, and you put your schach on top of those vines. What's it in? Psula. That's possible. But if there's tons of schach, you chopped off the vines, then it's kasha. Why? Because of the principle of bittul. Because that's kasha. We don't make a gzeira. In other words, if you put your schach on top of posel schach, and it's b'shechavtan, it's kasha. You might think, says the Brisa, we make a gzeira. Come on, you don't make a gzeira. There's no decree, and it's all good. The chiddush is that even if it's lechatchila, you can build your sukkah like that. There's nothing wrong with having posel schach together with kosher schach. I'm not sure how the Chaznish would learn this gemorah. According to Chaznish, there's a problem of Maimed, right? The problem of Maimed is, I haven't looked into it, so I haven't thought about it, it just occurred to me now. So forgive me if I'm talking nonsense. The problem with Maimed is that we're going to see that if you put your schach on top of something posel, it's Maimed, it's holding it up. The Maimed has to also be kosher schach. You can't put your schach on metal beams. That's why the lats in the sukkah are made of wood, because it's maimed. So here it looks like this schach posel is being maimed. But elamah, you say bittul. So in that case, so what's the problem with any maimed? Every maimed, if it's connected, if it looks like it's together, we should say bittul. I don't know how you're going to learn this. I have no idea. To me, it's a good kasha. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen anyone speaking about it. I'm going to have to do a bit of research. But there's another completely different way of learning this gemorah. The other way of learning the gemorah is the Rav Yah's way. And says the Rav Yah, we're not talking here about a case where it's the tree is. We're not talking about a case where you need the leaves of the tree to get the Rav Schach, to get the Rav Tzal. That's not what we're talking about here. You don't need those leaves. The sukkah is a good sukkah without the leaves. And this is how you normally read the Mishnah. The sukkah is a good sukkah even without the leaves of the tree. So why is it possible? Not because you need good, your schach is made out of good schach and bad schach, and now we're using bittul in order to make it all to a good schach. No. The Gemara is not talking about bittul bechlal. The Gemara is not talking about you need the bad leaves in order to be considered good sukkah. According to Rav Yah and other Rishonim also, I think, your sukkah is a great sukkah. It's lechatchila mahajim badat eidich sukkah, right? You built it under a tree. Now the tree, anything under the tree, you look at it like that schach isn't here, because the schach of your sukkah is not protecting you from the sun. The point of the schach is to give you shade from the sun. But since you built it under a tree, the tree is giving you the shade. If you take away the sukkah, you're still not going to be sitting in the sun. And therefore, the sukkah is not doing anything. The sukkah has to be an active sukkah. It's got to actually be protecting you. And if you built it under a tree, so let's say, I'll give you the numbers. You built a sukkah at 60% shade, right? And you've got a tree that's giving 30% shade. So now you're left with, so take away 30% of your shade from your sukkah. because it's commandulated, it's like it's not here. That's not doing anything. So you're left with a sukkah that's only got 30% shade. It's no good. So you need to have a majority of 51% shade from your SUCCAH. So in other words, if your sukkah is 100% shade and the tree takes away 10%, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, so take a look at Taisus. Says Taisus. Take a look in the second narrow line. Taisus asks, the gemorah could have answered the more basic teretz. Instead of staying with shechavta, lechavta, the whole thing, the gemorah could have said, you know what? The belav pasol till samuruba. The gemorah could have said, you know what the case is here? Without the tree, you've got Rav Tel, like the Rav Yah says. Why did the gemorah just say that? The gemorah says, why is it pasol? Vadlei Mishani Kagay, the gemorah should have answered. It's very basic. You know what we're talking about here? You know in which case the bottom sukkah should be kosher? I'll tell you what case. When the bottom sukkah has got Rav Tzal, the bottom sukkah is a mahadrin, but that's sukkah, you've got 100% shade. And in that case, I don't care if the tree's a little bit of shade. So Tai says, Mishun Dim Kain, if that's the case, Maila Memra. Maila Memra. Tahasha Nami, the Mishani Mishchav the Kaparich. Because the Gemorah would say the same thing. The Gemorah says there's enough community if you pushed it down, you didn't push it down. So says Taisus, so you can have the same kasha. It doesn't help you. The Gemorah says there's only enough community if you pushed it down. Now, okay. Tanarabon says the Gemorah. The sukkah's agabi sukkah. Tanarabon. The sukkah station v'lei b'sukkah station. It says in the Torah says the sukkah station. You should sit in sukkahs. Sukkahs is plural, right? Sukkahs is plural. That teaches me that you can't sit in the sukkah tachas sukkah. It says you should sit in one sukkah, and the sukkah is called a sukkah because of the SUCCAH. It says basukkahs and not basukkah shetachas sukkah, not in two sukkahs. The Gemara asked obvious question: what are you talking about? So the Gemara asks. V'lei b'sukkah shetachas elan, v'lei b'sukkah shetachas sukkah, v'lei b'sukkah shetachas elan. V'lei b'sukkah shetachas abayis. Don't sit in the sukkah in your house. Don't sit in the sukkah under a tree. Don't sit in the sukkah under a sukkah. Your three cases possible. The Gemara says, "Either Rabbah." The opposite should be true. Hello. The opposite should be true. But sukkah is tarti mashma. The word sukkah is plural, so that should imply you could sit in two sukkahs. You could sit in a sukkah under a sukkah. Why does it? What's the implication from this verse that you can't sit in a two-storied sukkah? Lehefech, the contrary, you should be able to. Says the Gemara. I'll tell you what's going on over here. Amr Nachman by Yitzchak by SUCCAH ksiv. The way it's spelt in the Torah is without the vav. It's spelled samach chaf tes, and therefore we can learn from the fact that it doesn't use the vav that it's. You're right. It's pronounced sukkahs plural, but it's written sukkahs singular, and therefore you can only sit in a singular sukkah. Amr of Yirmiyah, says Rav Yirmiyah. Pamim sheshteim ksher. Sometimes you got two sukkahs, one on top of the other one, they're both kosher. Pamim sheshteim psulos. You got a sukkah on top of a sukkah, they're both possible sometimes. Pamim, sometimes shetachtein ksher v'alyein psulos. Sometimes the one underneath is kosher and the one on top is possible. And pamim shetachtein psulos v'alyein ksher. The last case is obviously the Mishnah's case. Sometimes the sukkah underneath is possible and sukkah on top is kosher. So why does our Mishnah specifically talk about a case where the last one of these four cases? Good kasha. The Gemara is going to explain. How do you find sometimes they're both kasha, sometimes they're both pasul, sometimes one on the top is kasha, sometimes the bottom is pasul. The Gemara is going to go ahead and explain. Hey Chidami, what's the case where both sukkahs, one on top of the other one, is kasha? So the Gemara explains. Shatachtaina chamsa ruba mitzilsa. The one underneath has got chamsa ruba mitzilsa. The one underneath has got a lot of sun. By itself it wouldn't be kosher. V'yaina tzilza ruba mechamsa. The one on top has got a majority of shade. V'kaim elyaina b'teich esrim. Now the top sukkah is within 20, and the Mefarshim explain it means within 20 of the SUCCAH, because the din of seeing the SUCCAH is from your floor. The reason why it's got to be within 20 is you've got to be able to see the SUCCAH from the floor, from where you're sitting. Okay? So therefore what? So the top, let's make the cheshbon. The top sukkah is within 20, and you've got Rav SUCCAH within 20. The top sukkah is 100% fine, right? And the bottom sukkah is kosher. Why? Because you don't have Rav Tzell underneath. The bottom SUCCAH is not SUCCAH. You're using a... There's nothing wrong with it. Let's see Rashi. It says Rashi. Says, so what's going on over here? 1 minute. So before I should explain that what, since the bottom sukkah doesn't have SUCCAH kosher, doesn't have it doesn't have Rav Tzell, you've got tons of sun coming through. It's as if there's no SUCCAH now. The bottom sukkah is as if there's no SUCCAH, and therefore you're using the SUCCAH from top to be considered a SUCCAH. And since the whole thing's within 20, so for example, the bottom sukkah goes from 0 to 10, and the sukkah on top goes from 10 to 20, right? Or from 10 to 15, whatever it is. So either way, since both SUCCAH is within 20, you look like there's no SUCCAH underneath. You've just got SUCCAH on top. And the SUCCAH on top is within 20 of the ground, of the earth. So you've got good SUCCAH. What's a good SUCCAH? The top SUCCAH. So in other words, two sukkahs can share one SUCCAH on top. You ignore the bottom SUCCAH. But if the bottom sukkah would have SUCCAH kosher, if those beams would be Rav Tzell, then the bottom sukkah would be pasul. Why? Because you got sukkah tachas a sukkah. Okay, that's the first case. Second case. Pamim shishteyim psules. What's the case where they're both pasul? Hey Chidam, we got the Tavai tziltzim merubah mechamsa. Both sukkahs have got tziltzim merubah mechamsa. Both cases have got Rav Tzell. Both cases are nice and thick. So the bottom one is possible because it's sukkah tachas a sukkah. But the top sukkah is above 20 feet. In other words, it reaches till, the first sukkah goes to, let's say, 10 feet. The second sukkah goes up to 30 feet. So now the top sukkah is possible because the SUCCAH is above 20. The bottom sukkah is possible because the sukkah tachas the SUCCAH, you got the SUCCAH possible with the SUCCAH kasha. In what case is the bottom one kasha and the top one possible? The one underneath has got a good cell. But the top one has got loads of sun coming through. So the top one's not good because you've got tons of sun coming through. You don't have Rav Tzell. The underneath one, since they're both within 20, the bottom one is kasha because it's not SUCCAH pasul on top, it's SUCCAH kasha on top. And therefore, the bottom one's good because you've got Rav Tzell. So it's good. Sometimes the top one is kosher, the bottom one's puzzle. What's that case? Going to the divided system of Reb Chaim, so you've both got good sell. If they both got good sell, and the top one's within 20, so the top one's good, regular sukkah, within 20, great sell, and the bottom one is puzzle because it's under the cell of the one on top. It's cell tachas cell. And you look at it, Rashi says over here, some say he's being chayza. Take a look at Rashi. Shetachtaina chamtza burban betzilsa, the schach tidok mandalei sehu. V'tavai miskashim v'schach ha'elyon. Once you've got rave cell on top or rave cell underneath, the schach underneath, it's like it doesn't exist. Okay? And therefore, that's parcel. All right. Says the gemorah. Pshita. Tachtoina kshera v'lenim psula. It's all part. Pshita. This is pashut. Sounds pretty complicated. The gemorah says that's pashut. What's revere me or come and tell me? All these cases, the 4 cases, is pashut. The gemorah says tachtoina kshera v'lenim psula. I need this to teach me the case of the tachtoina is kshera and the top one's parcel. The bottom one's kosher, and the top one's parcel. Why? You might think to make a gzera. No. Again, so the chiddush is here, not that it's kosher parcel, the chiddush is here, you might think you should go ahead and make a gzera, or to the case where the schach on top is above 20, we don't make such a gzera. Thank you very much for watching. Have a wonderful day.